So welcome, my name is Nicole Kittredge. I am an experienced and reputable senior loan originator with Envoy Mortgage. I am here in the Envoy Mortgage Medway office. We have 5 branches in Mass, nationwide lender. I'm thrilled to be offering this seminar today in my over 17 years helping clients. I must say that home insurance, even to me, definitely can be confusing. So today we have John Galvin, who also has 17 years experience as a licensed home insurance professional, and a few other specialties he offers through his company, Berry Insurance Group. Berry Insurance just celebrated their 100th year. So they certainly have a lot of experience behind them, and they're doing things right to have that 100th year anniversary. So congratulations, John. And
thank you.
Berry, you're welcome. So I'll turn it over to you. Tell us what you have. Hopefully we each come away with some great information.
Great. Thank you, Nicole. And thanks everybody for joining today and taking some time out of your day. So like Nicole said, my name is John Galvin. I'm with Berry Insurance. We're in Franklin, Mass. I'm just going to admit someone else here, Megan. And we are in our 100th year of helping folks protect everything that's important to them. So today, I'm going to talk about homeowners insurance. Really just going to try and provide as much information as I can, keep it pretty simple, but go over things that we're looking for and what we find to be important. And I'll certainly open it up to as many questions as folks have when we get to the end. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to talk about how you buy it. That's kind of where we start. What a policy should look like, and some of the coverages and different things that I'm looking for when I'm working on a proposal. Different ways to save, different discounts and things you can apply to keep your premiums down. And then how do we put coverage in place and where do we go from there? So how to buy homeowners insurance. There's really 2 ways that you can look at it. The independent agent versus the direct writer. So an independent agent, well, that's somebody like me here at Berry Insurance. We are an agency that works with multiple different insurance carriers. So we can access several different companies, and depending on your particular situation, we find the best option for you among those companies as far as coverage and premium. And then going forward from there, you have a licensed dedicated agent. If you ever have a claim or you have any sort of issue with your coverage, you call me at my phone number. You know exactly who you're going to speak to, and it's the same person every time. And someone that has a strong knowledge of the area and the market that we're in, knows what underwriting is all about. These are all advantages to working with somebody like us. The other option, a direct writer. So that's, typically your Geico or your Progressive. They're typically very limited in what they can offer. It may just be one company or possibly 2, but their market is very limited. You're very likely, if you're speaking to one of these companies, talking to somebody that's not here in Massachusetts, but probably somewhere else. They're at the other end of a 1-800 number. So they really don't have a great handle on our market. Or direct writers, sometimes people go online and just say, I'm gonna wing it and do this myself. Strongly advise folks not to do that. Homeowners insurance is one of the most important things that you're going to ever buy. And your home is probably your biggest investment you'll ever make. You need to make sure you protect it properly. And the average consumer, quite honestly, just doesn't know enough about how to insure your home to be able to do that online by themselves. So you have to be real careful. So building a policy, what am I looking for when I'm talking to somebody about home insurance? So the first thing that I will do, one of the first things, is go through what's called a cost estimator. So I'm going to speak to you about the property that you're purchasing, or maybe you already live in your home and you're just shopping your coverage around. Okay, we've got someone else coming in too. Welcome. So a cost estimator, really what I'm going to do is chat with you about your home, and I'm going to verify a lot of information, the square footage. Do you have a finished basement? Do you have an attached garage, swimming pools, sheds? Really go through all the different aspects of your home. What type of flooring? Do you have wallpaper? Do you have crown molding? We're going to go through kind of room by room and this exercise helps us figure out what the replacement cost is on your home. People get a little confused sometimes. Somebody may say, well, I'm buying my house for $500,000. Why are you insuring it for $375,000? There's a difference between the replacement cost on the home and what you're actually paying for the home. That higher amount, that's the market value that factors in your land and everything there. The replacement cost on your policy, that's just what it takes to rebuild the home itself if something were to ever happen. So that's why we go through this exercise to come up with that number. I'm going to ask about any recent renovations or upgrades, which we want to make sure we factor that in to make sure we have your replacement cost correct. Detached structures, do you have a large detached garage or a barn, a swimming pool, really any of those things, patios? Home-based businesses, do you work out of your home, which I know a lot of people do now, but it's different if you're actually running a business out of your home, if you have business property, if you're seeing clients. That's a whole different element of risk that we have to talk about and know about. And then prior claims history, if you have had recent claims, one isn't so bad. If you've had 2 or 3 in the prior few years, that certainly will limit what markets we can write coverage with. So these are all factors that I'm looking into.
The person that we had last year.
So elements of a policy, there's really 6 things that you'll find in a homeowner's policy. So your dwelling coverage, that's how much we're insuring the actual dwelling for. That's your house and anything that's attached to it. So if your garage is attached, that's going to fall under there. Other structures, that's everything that's detached. If your garage is 50 feet away, not attached to your home, your swimming pool, your shed, your driveway even falls under that. That's where coverage for those items falls. Your personal property, that's all your stuff. That's the easiest way to put it. So your clothing, furniture, electronics, pots and pans, all the belongings that you have at home, those are also covered under your homeowner's policy. Loss of use. So let's say it's wintertime in New England, your pipes freeze, one of them bursts and floods out your house or part of your house and you're displaced. You have to go stay somewhere else while the damage is being repaired. So that loss of use will help pay for hotel room, meals that you have to have out, expenses that you wouldn't normally incur in everyday life, but you incur them because you're displaced from your home. That's what your loss of use will help you out with. And then your liability coverages, your personal liability, if you're ever sued, found negligent or liable for damages, that's where you get coverage from under your homeowners. Your medical payments, a similar thing. If say somebody slips on your icy sidewalk and hurts themselves and sues you, you can get coverage for that under the medical payments and the personal liability coverage. So in a nutshell, that's what makes up your standard homeowners policy. So some important additional coverages that people may not think about, unfortunately, until it happens to them. Service line coverage. I just had this happen with my uncle, who's a client, and he's lucky that he's my client. If you have utility lines that run, which everybody does, the utility line from your house out to the street, that's your responsibility. If something were to happen to that and it ruptures or is damaged, you're responsible for that. Service line coverage will extend coverage for that. It's usually up to $10,000 in case something happens. In my uncle's case, it was a ruptured sewer pipe that ran to his house, and I was able to have him get a check from the insurance company for $10,000. The total cost was about $14,000. He was real happy to have 10 of that go to the insurance company.
Mine failed and it was not covered, and I was very upset about it.
Well, so that's, yeah, it's any homeowner's policy I write, I'm going to put it on there because it happens around here. In all my years of doing this, I've had it happen plenty of times. It's, you know, anybody here, go to your agent if you don't have this coverage or if you're not sure, because it's important to have. Equipment breakdown is a similar type thing. It's, you know, a furnace or a boiler is the big thing. If it's sudden and unexpected mechanical breakdown, you can have coverage for that. One of my colleagues here at Berry a couple years ago had that happen to her. All she had to pay was her deductible of $1,000, brand new furnace covered. Something else you may not think of. Now, don't get me wrong, if it's just wear and tear, or your furnace is 35 years old, your policy is not going to replace it, but it's for that sudden breakdown, which certainly does happen. Water and sewer backup. If your water or sewer line backs up into your house and floods out your basement, that's gross, but you want to make sure you have that coverage on your policy too, because it happens more often than you'd think. Personal injury, that's a little different than it sounds. That is really libel or slander. So nowadays with social media, the world is a lot smaller than it used to be. If you say the wrong thing about somebody, whether you actually speak it or you put it online and you get sued for that, that's what your personal injury coverage is for. And then earthquake. So unless you have that added onto your policy, earth movement or an earthquake, you're not going to have coverage for that. It's typically not terribly expensive to add it. I know it's not something that happens around here a whole lot, but it is something you would have to add on. And then scheduled property. So normally this is jewelry. If you have valuable jewelry items, but it can be other things, camera equipment, can be golf clubs, artwork, fur coats. There's a number of different categories. By adding these on as scheduled items, it allows you to recover the full appraised value if something happens to these items. It's typically if something is stolen or lost or mysteriously disappears, that's when your coverage can be limited unless you have these items scheduled on. So always good to look at doing that, especially if you have things that are real valuable. And then personal umbrella coverage, it's separate from your homeowners. What it does is gives you extra liability coverage on top of all of your other underlying policies, your home, your auto, and whatever else you may have. In my opinion, if you own a home and you have assets to protect, if you have children, any combination of those things, you really should have a personal umbrella policy. My opinion, if you're ever sued and found liable for damages, it's better for the insurance company to write a check than for you to have to sell your house and have your wages garnished and everything there. And umbrella policies are not expensive. I can certainly answer any questions on those as well. So what is not covered under a standard homeowner's policy? The big one is flood. A flood in the true sense of the word. So we have a major storm and groundwater comes flying in through to your basement, or you live near a body of water and that overflows and gets in your house. That's a flood. That's not covered. You would need separate flood insurance for that. Now, conversely, we live in New England. I go back to the burst pipe example, or if your bathtub overflows or your washing machine gives out, those types of things are covered. That's not considered a flood. That's completely separate. Damage caused intentionally. So if someone tries to burn their house down and collect the insurance money, that's not going to work. Or any damage that is intentionally caused. That's pretty self-explanatory. Insects or vermin, if you have damage caused by those, that's not covered either. And then I mentioned this before, wear and tear. So I get a lot of phone calls. Folks say, well, I have to replace my roof and the roofer said I should call my insurance company. Well, if you're replacing your roof because it's 25 years old and you need a new one, you're not going to have coverage under your homeowners. If a tree falls on your roof and punches a hole in it, yeah, of course you'll be covered. But wear and tear, that's not something you would have coverage for. It's the responsibility of the homeowner to make sure they're taking care of their house. All right, ways to save. There's plenty. The biggest one is to bundle your homeowner's insurance with your auto coverage. Typically, an average client, by putting these coverages together with the same company, you're saving several hundred to over $1,000 a year between the two, auto and home. And it just makes your life easier, having everything in one place, having it with the same agent, just makes life easier all around. Loss free. So the longer you have been without any homeowner's claims, the lower your premium is going to be. If you haven't had any prior claims, awesome. If you've had one in the past few years, you're going to pay a little bit more. That's just how it works, but the loss free is a good discount as well. The newer your home is, the less you'll pay. Really, an insurance company just looks at it as it's a brand new home. There's nothing that's going to be out of date or out of code. electrical, plumbing, heating, it's all up to date. So new home, it presents less of a risk and you'll pay less premium. Some companies will give you a discount for advanced quoting or advanced issuing. If you have your agent quote a policy and issue it a couple weeks in advance, insurance companies, they actually look at that and see somebody that's doing that as more responsible for some reason or another. So they will give you discounts for the advanced quote and issue. And then if you have an alarm system or other protective devices, depending on what type of alarm you have, what you're monitoring for, whether it's fire or burglar or both, if you have central monitoring like an ADT or another system like that, there are pretty significant discounts available for that as well. And same thing for water leak detection, low temperature alarms, if you have a generator hooked up to your home. These are all things that will help mitigate loss. So insurance companies will give credits for that. And then your deductible. Typically, most folks will go with $1,000. That's the lowest deductible that we'll write. If you're willing to shoulder a little bit more of the risk and absorb some of those smaller claims, if you go up to $2,000, $2,500, or even higher, that will bring your premium down accordingly, because again, you're taking on a little bit more of the risk, so they'll charge you less premium. So what do we need to do to finalize coverage? Once I've spoken to someone and we've agreed on a plan to go forward, I finish up their applications and I send them off to the client for electronic signature. They sign, those come back to me, I sign them, and then I place coverage with the insurance company. So as Nicole knows, of course, one of the things that the mortgage folks need in order to get everything moving is they need an insurance binder from me. So as soon as I've put a policy in place, I prepare that insurance binder. It only takes me a couple of minutes. I send it off to the mortgage company so they can add that to the file and help proceed to underwriting the mortgage and finalizing everything there. And then I always tell new clients, if the closing is still a few weeks out, please keep me posted. I ask the lender to do so as well. Sometimes things come up. A closing may get delayed for one reason or another. And if it does, then I will rewrite coverage to change the policy date to that new date. Or every once in a while, a closing might get moved up. So I'll respond accordingly on that as well. But anything that comes up in that interim between me writing coverage and the closing date, I always make sure I'm following up to help out any way that I can. So that is my presentation there. I've got my information right there, but I'm certainly happy to open it up to questions.
That was wonderful. And I have some comments and questions, but let me go through the questions first. So, hi, Roberta. She was asking if you insure homes on the Cape.
Yes, hi, Roberta. We do insure homes on the Cape. Certainly homes down there. There are some carriers that will write them and some that don't. Oftentimes, homes down there, they may be a secondary home or they may not, but we do have insurance companies that specialize in doing that. So we have plenty of markets for homes on the Cape.
Perfect. And Jason has a great question, and this was one of mine, so I'll check it off here. He asked about an expensive mountain bike, and I happen to have a hubby who is really into musical equipment. And should we add those to our policies?
Yeah, you can. Those are both categories that you can add as scheduled items. Bikes, I see it, not a lot, but I do see it. And musical equipment as well. So really what it comes down to is, what is the value for it? And then adding scheduled items, it's really not very expensive, depending on the category. But yeah, either of those categories, you can add those items.
And Megan, I don't know if you can unmute. If your hand's up and you want to ask a question, you certainly can. Or you're just maybe saying, hey.
No. Hi, I do have a question.
Go for it.
So recently, I had a situation where I sold a property that had knob and tube. And it was kind of a struggle for us to find someone who writes a knob and tube policy. Do you cover knob and tube in any of your policy writing? We
don't.
Okay.
Our insurance carriers, because of the increased risk of arcing and possible electrical fire and everything, they do stay pretty far away from that.
So there's not any type, and I know you're just basically flat out saying no, but there's no type of like 30-day or 60-day interval that you allow for the work to be done if it's being done like at, you know, I guess consummation of a close of a purchase?
You never say never.
Okay.
But it really, for an underwriter to make that exception, it would have to be set in stone that you have a signed contract, and the minute you close on this property, the contractor is in there doing this work and getting it done within a very short period of time. But again, it would be, it's a hard sell for most underwriters.
Okay. Okay. Makes sense. Thank you.
Yep.
If anyone else has questions, feel free to put your hand up or write in the chat, but I'm going to go through a couple quick notes, and I don't mean to be a salesperson for you, John, but a few things you said struck me because I do deal with the receiving end of insurance a lot. So you mentioned one of the reasons to work with a company like Berry is you're independent and we're working with one person. So when I have clients that are working, especially first-time buyers that have so much stress on their plate and working with a national company, we find nothing is fast, and often policies have to be updated. And sometimes it can take us a week with multiple phone calls and emails just to have a company make a small change on a policy. And that could actually put a closing in jeopardy. So being able to call someone local right away with fast responses is huge. The other thing is my personal experience. For many years that I owned, I was with a large company that might have an ostrich on their commercials. And before I realized it, they had jacked up my insurance that I was paying so much. Like I overpaid probably for a solid 5 years because I just didn't know, to be honest. And when I see clients that are refinancing that have had insurance a while and it looks pricey to me, I do mention it and recommend checking around. But I don't see that happen as much with the independent small companies. I feel like they're going to bat for you every year instead of an automatic increase. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And the nice thing too is, insurance, it's like any consumer product. It typically will go up a little bit from year to year. The cost for materials, for labor, especially right now with interruptions in supply chain, homeowners policies, they're going to go up a little bit from year to year to keep pace with inflation as well. But if I'm sitting here and I see a policy for a client that renews and it's $400 or $500 higher, well, something's wrong there. And I'm going to say, all right, what do I do here? I'm going to look at the other handful of companies that I can work with, come up with a better plan and go from there. Yeah, you're not going to have that if you're with a big national company. The renewal is going to go out, they're going to send you the bill, and then that's the end of it.
Right. They don't have the other companies to shop around with, really. Okay. The advanced quote, I love that because I can tell all of my clients you can save money, right? First-time buyers who haven't even found a house yet, if they contact their insurance company and say, I think I want to buy a house, what's the scoop to get insurance? That puts them in a better position to get a better price.
Yes, not every company does it. Some do, but most of them will do it on the auto side. So if you're doing this the right way and you're looking to bundle everything, you're going to get that discount at least once on the auto and even possibly on the homeowners as well. So yeah, it's like anything, you don't want to leave it to the last minute regardless, but by getting out in front of things and getting the process started earlier, all you're going to do is save yourself a little bit more.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great takeaway for me. I also didn't know that a generator can save you on your policy. So that's something we finally invested in this year. So I'm going to call my agent on that, probably switch policies over to you. And room by room, I had that kind of noted. So when someone's buying, it's easier for you to do you look at the listing of what they're buying, and does the insurance go through the pictures?
So what I will normally do, somebody calls me up and says, I'm buying 123 Main Street in Franklin. Okay, great. I'll Google it and I'll pull up the Zillow or Realtor.com or whichever one has the most pictures, I suppose. I'll ask the client, these pictures that are on the listing, are these accurate? I will definitely go through there because now I can see what type of flooring they have. Is the kitchen a custom kitchen or is it just builder's grade? How many bathrooms are there? Is the basement finished? Is there recessed lighting? What type of HVAC is there? Do I see vents? Do I see baseboards? I can get a lot out of looking at those pictures. And then I'm going to certainly verify all this information with the client. And, if they tell me, yeah, that's the kitchen now, but we're gutting it and we're going to put in a chef's kitchen. Okay, we want to factor that in. But yeah, that's typically what I'll do between looking at what I can find online as far as pictures and whatever the assessor's database has, and then just talking to the client and confirming information and asking them some questions for things that maybe I can't find online.
Great. I have one last question, then I'll get to a few hands up. What does umbrella insurance cover again?
So personal umbrella coverage, it is additional liability that goes on top of your homeowners, your auto, and then any other underlying policies you might have if you have a watercraft or snowmobile or something like that with a policy on it. So an example is, let's say you have $1 million of liability on your homeowner's policy, which you should, because that's the maximum companies will typically allow, and you should always have it. But let's say for some reason you are sued, you're found negligent, and the other person is awarded $2 million. Well, without the umbrella, you're now on the hook for $1 million. If you have $1 million umbrella policy, they'll write the check instead. The personal umbrella policy will also defend you in legal proceedings. They'll provide legal counsel and pay for it. And $1 million of umbrella coverage on average is around $200 to $225 a year. So what are we talking about? $20 a month, not even. If you own a home, if you have children, if you have assets to protect, if you have a swimming pool, if you have a dog, any of these things that could create an exposure for you, it makes a ton of sense to add that umbrella coverage in. Because again, it's not a lot of money for what it could potentially provide. And you can go in higher limits too, beyond $1 million.
Fantastic. So Debian, would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Okay, so the question I have to ask here is, as a first-time home buyer, the more you put down on that house, is the less you pay for your mortgage?
No, your down payment on the property will not affect your homeowner's insurance. The homeowner's insurance is based on the replacement cost of your property, which that number is going to be the same regardless of what you put down for down payment. So again, the homeowner's insurance will stay the same.
Okay.
I see it looks like there were a couple of other questions, Nicole. One from Jason: is it possible to have dwelling coverage exceed appraisal value? Typically, no. Normally, the appraisal value is going to be higher than the dwelling coverage amount because, again, the appraisal takes into account your piece of land and a number of other factors outside of just the value or the cost to rebuild the home. So usually the dwelling coverage amount is going to be less. And then from Amy, do you send someone to inspect the house after closing? Typically, insurance carriers, whichever one it is, they will have somebody come inspect. Sometimes it may just be an exterior, like when I bought my house was built in 2013, so it's not that old. Everything's in good shape. Somebody just showed up, walked around, left a card on my door, and that was it. But they may request an interior inspection, and they coordinate that with the homeowner. They don't just show up. They will call you and say, we'd like to inspect. What's a good day and time? And they coordinate it that way.
That's good. Yeah, that's something I didn't know, that people drive by after closing and they're from the insurance company.
Yep.
If you have questions, please unmute yourself and feel free to ask. Yes, go ahead, Aim.
So is the umbrella policy still needed if the owner has a declaration of homestead that should protect the house regardless?
Well, the Homestead Act, that, to my knowledge, is strictly to protect your home from creditors, for them coming after your home in that way. And that's not going to protect you if you were sued and found negligent or liable for any sort of damages. I mean, here's the way I look at umbrella coverage. I have it myself. Do I ever think I'll actually need it? No, I don't plan on getting sued. I feel like I'm a pretty responsible guy, but I'm willing to pay $200 a year to make sure that if something does happen, I have that coverage. And again, homeowners, really everyone should have it.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, we have a presentation coming up on the 17th is a credit one. The 24th is what is title insurance, and that's with Noelle Rossini, a real estate attorney. So I'm going to make a note to ask about homestead then.
She will know. I think I'm kind of right, but Noelle will know much more than me.
Homestead is definitely another one like insurance. Like we're not.
Yeah, because I thought that did protect you if you were like in a car accident, that kind of suit is what I was thinking, but not.
No,
like
I'm pretty certain that it's more so for creditors. Basically, they can't take your home. Again, Noelle will know better than me, but I don't believe it would protect you if you're sued or anything like that.
Cool.
Fantastic. No one else has questions. I really appreciate all of your time today. John's contact information is here, and I've CC'd you all, except for Hamid. Hi, Hamid, on emails. Happy to connect with any of you anytime on insurance, because although I certainly took away some points, I'm reaching out with more questions to John.
Yeah, by all means, call, email, whatever's easiest as far as getting in touch with me. Happy to answer any questions that come up. If anyone has coverage concerns, I'm happy to take a look at that for you too.
Thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Let's hope for no more snow.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
No insurance claims.